Brachos Daf Yarav continues the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about what is the proper position in which one should be saying Shema. It discusses that machlokes for a while, bringing rayas to each opinion and finally giving a psak. Then we have another Mishnah which discusses the brachos of Kriya Shema, and the Gemara will discuss how many brachos we say before and after Shema, and what the text of the brachos are. The Gemara will then jump into the halachos of Brachos HaTorah and give certain rules about Brachos HaTorah. So let's get into it. So we had a machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. What is the proper position in which one should be saying Shema? Beis Hillel says any position you want, and Beis Shammai says you have to be lying down when you say the evening Shema, and you have to be standing up when you say the morning Shema. What is this machlokes about? So the Gemara is going to describe that. Machlokes is how you understand the pasuk B'shivtecha b'veisecha v'lechtecha v'aderech v'shachbecha uvkumecha. This describes four positions relative to Shema, four phrases relative to Shema. You have B'shivtecha b'veisecha when you're sitting in your house. You have B'lechtecha v'aderech when you're walking on the road. You have B'shachbecha when you're getting up, and you have B'shachbecha when you're lying down, and uvkumecha when you're getting up. So how do you understand these four phrases? So the Gemara analyzes Beis Shammai first. Beis Shammai says, B'shivtecha and B'shachbecha uvkumecha, lying down and standing up, has to be referring to you're actually in a position of lying down and in a position of standing up. It can't be that it's referring to the time when people are getting up and the time that people are going to sleep. Because if that's what it was referring to, let it just say, B'boker or B'erev, in the morning and in the evening. It must be saying that's a position you have to be in. The Gemara says, is that true? If that's true, that the words B'shachbecha uvkumecha are referring to your position, so then what is B'lechtecha b'derech, walking on the road, and B'shivtecha b'veisecha, sitting in your house? What does that mean? You have to be walking on the road and sitting in your house when you say Shema? That's obviously not true. So Beis Shammai says, no, that's to teach you a different halacha. That's to teach you that there are two types of people who don't have to say Shema at all. Somebody who's involved in a mitzvah doesn't have to say Shema, oisik b'mitzvah patur min ha-mitzvah, and a chassan who's getting married doesn't have to say Shema if he's marrying a besula, a girl who was never married before, because he's too worried about the wedding and the relationship that he has to develop afterwards. The Gemara says, interesting. What is the words B'shivtecha b'veisecha v'lechtecha v'aderech, sitting in your house and working on it, what does it have to do with somebody who's doing a mitzvah or somebody who's getting married? What does one thing have to do with the other? The Gemara says as follows. Those two phrases, sitting in your house and walking on the road, are both linked to the word walking on the road. The words walking on the road is a reshus. It's an optional activity. It's not a mitzvah. So the entire discussion about saying Shema is talking about somebody who's in the middle of an optional activity. Somebody who's in the middle of doing a mitzvah doesn't have to say Shema. We learned that out from the expression road. That connects to sitting in your house and walking on the road. These are all optional activities. That's when somebody should stop and say Shema, and that's the source for it. The Gemara says, hold on a second. Walking on the road is an optional activity? Couldn't walking on the road be going to do a dvar mitzvah? You never walk on the road to a dvar mitzvah? For sure you do. So if that's the case, so then the pasuk is saying the opposite. You should stop and say Shema if you're walking on the road, and even if you're walking to a dvar mitzvah. The Gemara says no. Beis Shammai's proof is as follows. You have to carefully analyze the words. B'shivtecha uvelechtecha. When you are sitting, the word is literally translated as in your sittings and in your walkings. That's the accurate translation. Why does it have to say in your sittings, b'shivtecha, and uvelechtecha, in your walkings? Let it say b'sheves uveleches, when sitting and when walking. It says in your sittings and your walkings to tell you that it's yours for your own purpose. You're doing something which is a reshus, an optional thing, not that you're in the middle of a mitzvah. That is when Shema applies to you. But if you're doing something which is a mitzvah, Shema does not apply to you. Okay, the Gemara concedes the point. Now the Gemara says I hear, but then the Gemara says, if that's true, why does it only apply to a person who's doing a mitzvah and a chassan who's marrying a besula, a girl who was never married before? What if he's marrying a widow? That wouldn't apply. He doesn't have the same concerns. The Gemara says marrying a widow is not so stressful, it's not so concerning, it's not occupying as much, he's not so anxious about it. The Gemara says, so it's about the anxiety. So what about somebody who had a ship and his ship just drowned? His ship just sunk and he lost all his merchandise. He doesn't have to say Shema either because he's anxious, he's nervous, he's worried. The Gemara says, no. That's not true. Because we know that that's not true. Because a mourner says clearly, a mourner, somebody who lost a close relative has to do the mitzvahs, except for tefillin. Tefillin he shouldn't wear. Tefillin is called pe'er, it's called glory, and a mourner in Avel has no glory. But Kriya Shema has to say, the fact that he's stressed out over the loss of his close family member is not a reason for him not to say it. So the Gemara concludes, you only don't have to say Shema if you're very anxious over a mitzvah. That's a chassan who is worried about his b'iyas mitzvah. Somebody who's anxious about other things, that does not get him out of saying Shema. Okay, now the Gemara turns to analyze Beis Hillel's shita. Beis Hillel said that b'shifta b'shachbecha uvkumecha means when you're getting up and when you're going to sleep, nothing to do with your actual position. Beis Hillel had proven that when it says lying down and standing up, it means times, because it couldn't mean positions, because of the phrase walking on the road. That's not a position that you have to be in. So the Gemara wants to know, so then how does he learn this halacha that you don't have to say Shema if you're a chassan? The Gemara says, he agrees. The meaning of the phrase "Balachtecha v'aderech" is coming to teach you that a chassan does not have to say Shema. But you also see from that you could say Shema when you're walking on the road. It does say somebody is walking on the road. So if you're walking on the road, then obviously you don't have to be either standing up or lying down, because your position is not what's being discussed here. You could even be walking on the road. And that's how Beis Hillel arrives at their position, that the position that you're in when you're saying Shema is not relevant. The Gemara now brings a brisa which discusses Beis Hillel's opinion. Beis Hillel says there are 5 positions you can be in when you're saying Shema. You could be standing, you could be sitting, you could be lying down, you could be walking, you could even be working. All of those are fine. The Gemara now brings an incident that happened with Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. They were sitting together, they were eating. Rabbi Shmuel was lying down, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was standing up. It came time to say Shema, and they switched. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah lay down, and Rabbi Shmuel stood up. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says to Rabbi Shmuel, "What? You're doing the opposite of me? That's like somebody who has a nice, long, beautiful beard, and they say to him, 'Hey, you have such a beautiful beard.' And he says to them, 'It's beautiful? Okay, bring me scissors and I'll chop it off. I'm finally agreeing with you to lie down, and then you go and stand up. So what's going on?' So Rabbi Shmuel said to him, 'Because you're doing like Beis Shammai. You're lying down in order to say the evening Shema. And the Talmidim are going to see that you're doing that, and they're going to think that that's the halacha, because you're going out of your way to do that, and I want to make sure that it's clear that it's not the halacha.' So I said, I'm going to bedafka stand up by the evening Shema to make sure that everybody should know that the halacha is not like Beis Shammai." The Gemara now wants to know what happens if somebody follows the wrong halacha. So there are 3 opinions. Rabbi Cheskel says if you did like Beis Shammai, it's good. You did like Beis Hillel, it's good. Either way, you're Yaitzer Shema. Rabbi Yosef said, no, if you do like Beis Shammai, you're not Yaitzer. And he proves it, because we have an incident where Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel were arguing about halach and hachas sukkah, if you're allowed to sit in the sukkah with your table outside the sukkah. And they went to see Rabbi Yochanan ben Achiranis, and the Gemara says, first, Beis Hillel's version is that the Talmidei Chachamim, nobody argued with him, even though he was following Beis Shammai's shita, he was following Beis Hillel. And Beis Shammai's version of the story is that Beis Shammai said to him, "You're not yaitz if you do that." So we conclude from there that Beis Shammai holds if you follow Beis Hillel, you're not yaitz. So then we who hold like Beis Hillel should certainly hold that if you follow Beis Shammai, you're not yaitz. Then the third opinion as to what happens if you follow Beis Shammai is Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, who says Yichayv Misa. And he proves it from our Mishnah. The Mishnah said that Rabbi Tarfon followed Beis Shammai to lie down and say Shema. And the Chachamim said to him, if the robbers would have set it up with you and killed you, you would have deserved it. So you see that somebody who follows Beis Shammai's halacha is Chayiv Misa. Now we start another Mishnah which discusses the brachos of Kriya Shema. These are paragraphs that are said before and after Shema. Some start with a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem. Some end with a phrase of Baruch Atah Hashem. Some are long, some are short. So the Gemara says, in the morning you say 2 brachas before Shema and 1 after Shema. In the evening, by Ma'ariv, you say 2 before and 2 after. Some are long, some are short. You cannot make a long one shorter or a shorter one longer. And one that ends with a bracha phrase, you cannot take the bracha phrase away. Or if it doesn't end with a bracha phrase, you're not allowed to put a bracha phrase onto it. The Gemara now discusses the text of the bracha. So what's the bracha that we say in the morning before Shema? We say, Baruch Atah Hashem Yotzer Or Uvoirei Choshech, who created light and creates the dark. This is paraphrasing a pasuk in Yeshaya that praises Hashem for Yotzer Or Uvoirei Choshech, creating light and the dark. And it continues, he creates peace and created evil. Oisei Shalom Uvoirei Ra. And when we say it, we say Oisei Shalom Uvoirei Hakol, created peace and created everything. which is a euphemism. So the Gemara wants to know, why don't we use a euphemism instead of saying choshech, instead of saying the dark? It's a strange praise for Hashem. Let's say created noiga, created twilight, mixtures of light. The Gemara says, what do I mean? We follow the phrase that it says in the pasuk. We don't fool around with it to use a nicer version. The Gemara says, oh, that's not true. We changed Bayrei Ra to Bayrei Hakol. The Gemara says, yeah, the reason why we want to say choshech is because there's an Indian that when we're saying during the day, we should mention the darkness, the midah of night. And when we're saying during the night, we should mention the midah of the day, we should mention light. So during the day, our bracha includes the word choshech, and at night, our bracha includes the word or. Where do you have the word or in a bracha at night? We have the phrase, goylel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. That's something we say by Ma'ariv. Now the Gemara says, what is the second bracha that we say in the morning? The Gemara says it's ahava rabbah. And the Gemara says, not ahavas oilam. The phrase has to be ahava rabbah. Not everlasting love Hashem has for us, but great love for us. And the Gemara brings another opinion. There are Rabbanan who say, no, it's ahavas oilam. It's based on the pasuk of ahavas oilam mahavtich akein meshachti chesed. I've loved you forever, and therefore I have drawn you kindness. And the Gemara says, therefore, what we do is we say the two of them. We say one in the morning, one at night. One we say Avarabba, one we say Avos Olam. Now the Gemara says halachos related to this, and here we're going to get into Hilchos Brachos Daf. The Gemara says somebody gets up early to learn, and he didn't say Shema yet, so he has to say a bracha on Torah. He has to say Berachas HaTorah. Somebody who doesn't start learning until later, after he already said Avarabba, doesn't have to say Berachas HaTorah. He's the Yotze Berachas HaTorah with Avarabba, because included in there is saying with Libeinu Lumud Alami Lishma Velasus Lakaims Kol Divis Hamot Resecha Talayim Chuki B'Tzeinecha. We are thanking Kadosh Baruch Hu already for the Torah, and therefore that takes the place of Berachas HaTorah. The Gemara now discusses what kind of learning obligates the bracha on Berachas HaTorah earlier. The Gemara has 4 categories of learning in order from psukim to halacha or to chazal. You have mikra, psukim. You have medrash, which is discussions of the psukim. You have mishnayos, which is a collection of halachas. And you have gemara, which is a discussion of the halachas that brought down in the Mishnah. So the Gemara has a number of opinions here. Which one require Berachos HaTorah? The opinion of Rav Huna is only psukim, not the rest. Rabbi Eliezer says psukim and medrash. Rabbi Yechanan says psukim, medrash, and mishnah. And Rava says all 4 categories require a pasuk. The Gemara relates that Rav Chia bar Ashi was in front of Rav, and he asked him a question on sifra, which is a midrash. And he first said hold a second, and he washed his hands, and he made a bracha, Berachas HaTorah. Now the Gemara wants to know, what is the text of Berachas HaTorah? Rabbi Yehuda Mishmol says, Asher kidshonim t'osev v'tzivonu la'asoik b'divrei Torah. Rabbi Yechanan added, you end off by saying as follows: Haravna Hashem Elokeinu es divrei Torah secha b'finu, o v'fifi yos amcha beis Yisrael, v'nei anachnu v'tzetzeinu v'tzotzei amcha beis Yisrael, kolonu yodei shemecha v'oiskei Torah secha, baruch atah Hashem hamelamed Torah la'amoy Yisrael. Very similar to what we have, except that we add another thing, which the Gemara says now. Rav Hamnuna adds, Asher Bacha Barim Mikol Amim V'Nasanos Terasai Bracha Ta Hashem Nesena Torah. And the Gemara says Rav Hamnuna says this is the best bracha, and therefore a person should combine all of these texts and say it all, which is what we do, and that's what we have in our Siddur. The Gemara now discusses the procedure for saying Shema and the brachas in the Beis HaMikdash. The Kahanim who did the Avodah there were very pressed for time. They couldn't say all the brachas. They couldn't even say Shema on time. They were allowed to say it in the wrong time. They said it too early. And they had a shortened version of Shema and a shortened version of Shemona Esrei. So the Gemara quotes a Mishnah in the Talmud, which says the following thing: the Memuna, the one who was in charge, announced to the Kahanim after they brought the carbon in the Talmud, say one bracha of Kriya Shema, and then they would do the following. They would say a bracha, and then they would say the Aseret HaDibros. They would recite Shema, V'hayim Shemaya, and Vayomer, and then together with the rest of the people that were in the Beis HaMikdash by a normal tefillah, they would say 3 brachos that was instead of Shemona Esrei. They said Emes V'Yatziv, they said Avodah, that refers to Ritzei in Shemona Esrei, and they said Berachos Kahanim. Now, Shabbos, they had time for a 4th bracha. There was a little bit of extra time because there was an extra mishmar. Then the shifts switched on Shabbos between the 2 Timidim. So they said an extra bracha. So the Gemara says, okay, what was the one bracha that they said? So Gemara says, not clear. Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Asi went to a certain place and they asked over there, what's the bracha? And they didn't know. So they went together and they asked Rav Masna, and he didn't know either. So when they asked Rav Yehuda, and he said, Rav Shmuel, it's Ava Rabba. Gemara says that Rav Zrika did know which bracha it was that the Kohanim said. It was the bracha of Yotzer Or, praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the light. The Gemara says that Rav Zrika heard that from Rav Shimon ben Lakish, but the Gemara says Rav Shimon ben Lakish did not say that explicitly. Rav Zrika derived it from something that Rish Lakish said. What was the thing that Rish Lakish said that he derived it from? The following statement. Rish Lakish said that I can prove that the brachos of Kriya Shema are not all or nothing. Even if you said only one and you should have said two, you're Yaitza anyway, you fulfill the mitzvah anyway. What's my proof? From the fact that the Kohanim only said one and they didn't say the two of them. So now Rav Zrika says as follows. Hold on a second. That only makes sense if the one bracha that they said was Yetzer Or. Because then why don't they say Ahava Rabbah? They could have said it whenever they want to. They could have said it after Yetzer Or. It comes later. There was plenty of time to say it. The fact that they didn't say it and they were Yetzer anyway proves, like Reish Lakish is saying, that's the explanation of what Reish Lakish means. That proves that you don't have to say both. You're Yetzer even if you only say one. However, if the one bracha that they said was Ava Rabbah, they couldn't have said Yetzer Or at the time because they said it too early. And they can't say Yetzer Or later because Yetzer Or has to be said before Ahava Rabbah. So then the only bracha they could have said was Ahava Rabbah. There isn't nothing else they could have said. Reish Lakish would not be able to prove from there that you are Yetzer, even if you don't say everything you could have said. They did say everything they could have said. They said Ahava Rabbah and they couldn't say Yetzer Or. It was too early and they can't say it after Ahava Rabbah. Based on this, Rav Zrika says Reish Lakish's proof only makes sense if the one bracha that they said was Yetzer Or. So Gemara says, okay, very nice. You've proven to me that Rav Zrika did not hear it directly from Reish Lakish. He derived it from something Reish Lakish said. Big deal. Either way, it's a good proof. Gemara says, no, it's not a good proof because I could argue. I could say that maybe Reish Lakish really was saying that I can prove from the fact that the Kohanim said only one, and the one that they said was Ava Rabbah, I could still prove that if you say only one, you're Yaitza, even if you should have said more. Why? Because maybe Reish Lakish simply holds that you could say the brachas out of order. And they said Ava Rabbah early when they said Shema. They could have said Yetzer Or later when the sun came up. And therefore, Reish Lakish says the fact that they didn't proves that you don't have to say both brachos. They're not ma'akev each other. That would then reject Rav Zrika's derivation from Reish Lakish that the bracha that they said was Yetzer Or. Maybe it was really a Ahava Rabbah.